Welcome to Team Talk, a PESTA podcast series where we bring inspiring conversation to our Singapore PE teachers. Today we are at NIE. NIE brings many happy memories to all our PE teachers, including me, where I had lots of fun here while learning to become a PE teacher. Today, in our PESTA podcast series, we are going to have a very special person, Professor Duarte Araújo. He is a professor of psychology and motor behavior, heads the Laboratory of Expertise in Sport at the University of Lisbon, and leads the research unit CIPER. With over 200 scientific papers and 15 books, his work has shaped how we think about skill acquisition, decision-making, and ecological dynamics in sports. Interestingly, Professor Araújo also started his career as a PE teacher, so today promises to be a very interesting conversation. Prof, thank you for joining us today. Really happy to have you with us, and I'm sure the PE teachers of Singapore will really benefit from this conversation.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Would you let us know what inspired you to be a PE teacher, and then how you made your journey into academic work?
Well, I went to study sports science in physical education because that was the only thing I saw myself doing in the future. So since a teenager, when I was in the school, I practiced sports, but I was a good student in many topics, but the topic that really fulfills me the most was physical education. So if I was seeing myself in the future, I really want to see myself related to physical education. So when it came to choose which course should I proceed, I chose physical education. It was my first and only course, and I directly got into it, and that was how it started. I also had some experience in teaching, but during that time, so we could teach, supervise during our degree, as I think it happens in other places. And when I was doing it, I got also other solicitations, more related with sports, also related with sports psychology, more applied work. And because of that, I was also enjoying other areas until when exactly when I finished my degree, I was invited to stay there to what we call it a kind of monitor, someone who helps the professor to give the classes. So I started in that way, and I was really enjoying it. I was teaching sports psychology and track and field, so it was my two topics that I have at the time, and I really enjoyed it. So that was shaping my career into the academy, and I continue with it.
Okay. This is your first visit to Singapore?
Yes, exactly.
How's that experience been so far?
Oh, wonderful. I've been in other. I've been already in this part of the world, in China, in several places, but Singapore is special. It's different. I knew Hong Kong, Macau, some places in China, but here you find the harmonious blends of how people with different races, different beliefs live together in a very, very interesting way. I'm amazed by it, and I also appreciate a lot this green, this strong contact with nature that we can find here.
Yeah. Have you tried our local food?
I've tried every day, harder that is. I am enjoying it. It's quite diverse and delicious.
Okay, cool. Right. You've written extensively on skill acquisition. In your view, what exactly is acquired during skill acquisition? If a PE teacher was to hear a conversation and then think about learning of skill and the teaching of skill, what could you explain from your research, from your point of view, how skill is being acquired?
Very nice question. It's so nice that about more than 10 years ago, we wrote a paper specifically about that. And the title of the paper, which became the cover of the journal, it was what exactly is acquired in skill acquisition. Okay. And my answer is that there's no acquisition. Okay. This is not like an object that we can acquire, that we can transport the objects from one side to another. This is a process of adjustment, of attuning, of developing a different way of acting, a more sophisticated way of action, of perceptual motor perceptual motor learning. So this means that instead of thinking about something that is put inside of the person, like information, like muscle strength, like whatever it is more how you are better using your own resources according to the circumstances to achieve your goals better. So this is for me a big important conceptual change and challenge, because it's instead of looking to the traditional things that focus too much on the individual and try to enrich him with things, with verbalizations, with strengths, with nutrients or whatever it is how you use the way that you are in every moment, in the sense that we are never the same twice, so we have to adjust, to adapt, to attune to our circumstances according to our own variations to achieve a goal. And this is this sophistication, this adaptation of the action, which I think we learn over time. We learn to act better, we learn to adjust better to the environment.
So when we say a player is skillful, right, he's a very skillful player, from an ecological dynamics perspective, what would that mean?
It means that his intentions converge more to the goals of the task, of the football, of the rugby, or whatever it is, the sport. So he's not having intentions that deviates from that there. And this happens a lot in all levels. Let me give an example in high level. For example, a player that his focus, his intention is on being the best. Yeah. If I'm thinking about being the best, I'm not thinking about what my attacker is doing. Yeah. So this convergence of the intentions of the player towards the task goal is one major issue that you learn over time, to don't let follow other intentions, but follow those, or convert your intention towards the task goal. The second point is that by having your intention convergent with the task goal, you learn how to use better information. What are the better sources of information you can use to achieve your goal? And the third aspect of what learning is about is how you act on that sources of information. So it's not that you have an action beforehand ready-made, it's how you adjust it, not too much with too much strength, too much less strength, but adjusted to what that information tells you to do, exactly to achieve the ball, to make the ball be in your teammate. So this means that it's not simply to know how to kick a ball, to have enough strengths, but how to adjust it according to the information that is available. So intention, the education of intention, the learning about intention, learning about attention, perceptual attunement, learning about calibration, how you link with that information.
So a skillful player is a very adaptable player.
Yeah, that is the source.
That will be it.
So the idea is that all this process allows you to find always unique solutions. So you are not simply repeating solutions from the past, you are seeing what is available in every moment for you to achieve the goal. And this means that sometimes you can do in one way, sometimes you can do it in a different way.
Yeah. So in our MOE curriculum, Singapore curriculum, actually MOE curriculum, we'll talk about 21st century competencies, and one of it is adaptive and inventive thinking. I think it's in other subjects like mathematics and physics and etc. It's slightly more easier to interpret how adaptive and inventive thinking might happen, solving different problems in different contexts. Cognitively, they will say a student is adaptive and inventive thinking. Can a PE teacher sort of create situations so that the students are able to show this adaptive and inventive thinking in their games?
Very good question. Well, we are in a strange world, aren't we? We are in a world that we can see more creative behavior on the 2D plan, so writing on the digital world, than in our movements. So our movements are so rich, so varied, they are never unique, and we don't see the creativity and the innovation of how we move, how we solve our daily things. Like here, setting this space, it was the first time we did it, and we immediately find solutions for all of this. So we are strange because we are educated just to see things in the 2D way. So that's why your question is profound, because it shakes us towards reality. Well, I think if we understand that always, every time we act, we are discovering new solutions, new ways of moving. We are the same hand that shakes a hand, that opens the door, that can play his violin, can brush our teeth. All these solutions that can be found with the same structures show that what is difficult for us is not to be creative. What is difficult for us is not to be adaptive. And curiously, we tend to be kind in the factory machine that we train to constrain all our creativity just to do the things in the same way. This is the strange thing about our society, that we are so much being constrained. So by having said this, I think we have to understand that there are a rich process of understanding how teaching and education is about, absolutely, but also we have to get rid of this tendency that comes with the industrial revolution to train people as the machine, as the pieces for something that they should achieve later on, like the pieces of the car that should be assembled at the end. So we are always complete. We are not pieces. We are not made of pieces, and we are. If there is something clear about our movement, is that it's always adaptable and adjusted to the circumstances. So by saying this, we have to rethink the way we educate, not simply to make people repeat a solution, but facing the same problem, the same task, allow people to explore their unique solutions. Yours will be different from mine, to achieve the same goal. If we teach people in physical education, which I think is one of the most important subjects in school, because all the other topics teach you how to understand things in 2D. This allows you to act in the world, so it's a very noble function. So if what is done in PE education and sports and coaching and whatever it is about human movement, in order to maintain this abundance of solutions that we can have, instead of educating people to restrict them just to imitate one supposed best solution that the teacher or the book said it was the best, if we avoid that tendency and allow the person to discover other unique solutions to achieve that goal, I think we are always enhancing creativity. We are always enhancing adaptability.
So that is like adaptive thinking in action.
Adaptive
thinking in action. It's happening.
It's happening. So we should potentiate it instead of restricting it. We tend to understand that there is only one way of moving, the correct way, the technical way, and this is very much based on the shape of it, and not exactly on the function, on what it is achieving, what is the goal that this form is achieving. So if you link this to achieving more than to the shape, then we see that there are multiple ways to achieve a certain goal. So we should encourage more this adaptive way of achieving the same goals.
Yeah. So being practically on the ground, so if a teacher was to teach in a ecological dynamic perspective, so it is good if the practice task kind of simulates some of the elements of a game like what is expected in a game, then we simulate it in a practice task. Do you agree with the perspective?
I think that is a very good idea. I think sports are a powerful way of educating physically people. So sports as part of physical education is very interesting, although physical education is broader. But if you are using sports, of course, that those ways of moving, those ways of acting have cultural meaning. This is what sports are about. They are a kind of socio-cultural convention that have social meaning. So that is a very good way of educating people how to act, how to move. It does not. I like it very much, and I encourage it very much. But it doesn't have to be restricted to sports. It can include dance, for example. It can include, in some cases, I know about it, circus arts. So there are other cultural, meaningful activities that capitalize on our ability to move, and which I think are very interesting ways of physically educating people, because they are culturally meaningful. They are not simply movement per se. When we tend to look at movement as something that is just about movement, what research shows is that it sometimes is not so engaging for the people. Let me give you an example. And I think I mentioned this the other day when I was discussing with you. What we know from people going to the academia just to repetitive movements with the intention of just losing weight, this means that the movements they are doing are meaningless. What they want is to lose weight. So these movements per se, just to achieve something that is independent of movement, what research shows is that the people give up, more than 50% of the people give up in 6 months. So this means that it's not a question of movement per se, it's that movement that have social and cultural significance. This is much more powerful than simply doing movements based on our anatomical possibilities, you know.
Yeah, actually, I could relate to this a lot. In 2024, I had this personal goal to exercise 30 minutes every single day. Yeah, so I started out with, my end goal is to, because I'm a physical educator, so my identity is to be healthy and to be fit. And I'm a father of 2 boys, so I want to be strong for them, I want to be fit for them, I want to be healthy as I reach my 40s. So with that, I started with just 30 minutes of movement. At the beginning, it can be walking, it can be stretching and all that. Soon I found myself fitter to run, to be able to go to the gym, to swim, and to play football, to play tennis, to play pickleball. Right? And I could really relate to that because I think my fitness goal kind of aligned with the social, cultural aspects that you were mentioning.
They are very powerful. They are much beyond a biomechanical understanding of movement, which that's why I was mentioning as a contents or physical education, grasping these activities that have socio-cultural meaning. It's much more powerful than just thinking about exercising the body.
Yeah, in our PE syllabus we also talked about movement in the context of promoting social behavior, social emotional learning, and I think that is quite aligned to what you are mentioning. Right? Yeah. If we were to go to the nitty-gritty of teaching some very fundamental movements to our that is in our syllabus. In our kids, when they start out at 7 and 8, the syllabus talks about like really fundamental movements such as rolling, underarm throw, self-toss, and catch. So when we witness how it's being taught with some of our teachers, we feel that it can be quite mechanical, right? Put one leg up, your non-throwing leg forward, and then you pull back your hand 45 degrees, and then you roll, right? Yeah. And that's how it's being taught, right? How will a teacher who understands some of your research, right, will be able to change the way they teach?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have to use knowledge to improve what we are doing, not necessarily to revolutionize everything every time. So I think that is a good way of putting the things. That it doesn't mean that now let's start over again. I think we can improve what is already there. So I'm aligned with that.
Yeah.
So what I think is that more than simply look at the shape of the movement, also look towards the goals that are being achieved. So when you throw the ball like this, what is the goal? Is simply the movement per se, or to achieve something? For example, to pass in a way that someone can grasp it. Not simply pass, not simply throw the ball, but for someone. And if you are putting more intentionality that goes beyond your movement, goes towards achieving something, you are not putting more, and I would like to say it that way, more intelligence in the movement, more cognition in the movement. Movement is intentional, but also social in the sense that you are communicating with someone when you pass the ball in that way. The passing with respect that we were talking about the other day. So I think the more you go beyond the shape of the movements towards the function, towards what is this movement promoting, I think you are going more into this holistic view, let's say.
So perhaps to extend to what you're saying, teachers can teach the way they were teaching, but perhaps add on the goal towards the particular movement. For example, pass to your friend who's there able to catch it. Can you pass it when your friend moves to a different direction?
Yeah.
Can you pass to a different friend right now? And then can you do it faster? Or can you do it slower? Or can you do it with another ball? And that will create a situation for students to explore a bit.
I think so. I think that that can be a good way. And well, sometimes I have also this discussion with coaches, and they say, well, if they don't learn to do it properly, then they cannot do it again. And for example, when they are doing basketball and they throw the ball like this instead of going up. And one thing that I learned from other coaches, is that, well, but we can allow them to discover that. For example, if they are going to throw in this way and there is a teammate in front of him like this, he cannot be successful in this way. So he has to find other ways, and then he will find utility in discovering this upper arm way of throwing. So I think this is also interesting, that you create constraints-led approach in a way that allow them to discover other solutions that maybe goes align with forms of movement that we know that can be more economic or efficient, if you like to put it in that way. But the issue here is that you are not looking at the shape per se. You are making it functional in the way that if I throw in the way I'm used to throw, I will miss the target and I will lose the ball. So it's always functional and not simply following an order, following an instruction to throw. To shoot.
In that way, the teacher has to be very perceptive of where the skill kind of like is required, right? If a kid keeps throwing it this way, we don't say it's wrong, because if he's very successful, actually it's perfectly functional.
Very good
For him. But
I agree with that.
Can we create a situation where it's not functional anymore?
Exactly.
This kind of throw, so that he kind of understands that, hey guys, this is not working right now. I need to kind of switch and then able to throw this way.
That is exactly the way I think. So, and I agree with you. I think this judgment of being right or wrong is based on one opinion. If he's being successful, for him is doing what we're supposed to do. But if you create conditions, as you're saying, that solution will not allow him to be successful, and being successful or not implies much more intentionality, I think it's a better way of doing it.
Yeah, correct. In that way, the teacher has also to explore the way he teaches, right? One of the aspects that the teachers in Singapore are also exploring is metacognition, right? What's your opinion of metacognition in sports?
Yeah, okay. We humans can talk about our cognition. Yeah. This is what cognition is about. That's nice. That's nice that we think, that we talk about what we think. But this can be done in any other topic. This can be done in mathematics. This can be done in English. This can be done in geography. And I think I would put the strength where physical education is different, which is about movement, about educating movement, educating about how you can move better to promote a better world by your action. So I will, if possible, I will reduce a little bit the time that I will give to things that are secondary to our movement. I understand that we, as humans, we communicate. It's nice that we can talk about what we are doing, but this is more based on utility than as the main goal of physical education. The main goal of physical education is to improve our actions in the world, to act better, to have citizens that can, by their actions, improve the world. Not by their, and now I know that I can be misinterpreted, but our goal is not to be critical thinkers, is critical actors that makes the difference, and because our action is knowledgeable, is action that makes a difference. simply being a critical thinker, it can happen in any other topic. So we can do more than that. It's not to say that that is not important, it is, but we can do more and with more impact in the world.
Yeah, we call one of the things in PESTA that we talk about is the natural fit of if it's adaptive and inventive thinking. What's the natural fit in the subject area? So for us, it will be through movement. In critical thinking, it should also be exemplified through our movement, rather than we just sit down and we talk about it, and then sometimes we don't even see it happen, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel children are quite clever about when they talk about, where is the space tactically, what should you do? They're very clever about coming up with solutions. But what is more critical in physical education is actually for them to show us. Can you show us how
to solve the problem by their action?
Yeah, by their action.
So I think it's critical action more than critical thinking. But not to say that critical thinking is not important at all. It's very important. But that it's transversal to all the areas in school, to all the topics in school. So, and the other topics don't have this possibility that we have to make action the central goal. So I will put our emphasis more here and make these people make their difference in the way they act, in the way they interact in the world, the way they socialize by their action. And I think this is quite a very honorable, a very noble goal.
Yeah, correct. I think when you were with us at PESTA in office, you talk about the mind-body duality and how the history has been over 2,000 years. I think, hence, that's why we find it a bit more difficult to accept that, hey, a student is showing adaptive thinking through his action, showing critical thinking through his action, because perhaps we still want him to articulate what is he or he doing to show us that he truly is showing adaptive and inventive thinking or critical thinking.
Yeah, well, yeah, we are somehow trapped into this mind-body dualism, in this idea that there is a clever part of the body that leads the stupid part of the body. But this is nonsense. We are entire body. We all are brain, heart, liver, legs. All of us are the body. There is a philosopher called Merleau-Ponty that says we don't have a body. We are a body. And I like very much this way of putting things. So that's why to have one part of the body that is intelligent, the other part that is dumb, I try to get rid of it, and all our action be relevant. And in that way, I think we are really emphasizing some things that other topics cannot do, and I put all my strengths on that.
Yeah. In your perhaps we move slightly away from physical education. We talk about, I know some of your research is on talent identification, talent development. How would can a teacher focus using ecological dynamics to focus on helping students to reach their potential?
Well, this is an area where I think there's lots of myths. So we have difficulties in knowing at what time will rain tomorrow, and we have very sophisticated, and tomorrow is just tomorrow, very sophisticated science to predict that, and we miss it a lot. For example, today I brought the umbrella and that was not used. I didn't use it. So how we can think that we can guess what these children will do in 10 years? This is crazy. This is the only activity in the world that we try to guess what will happen in 10 years. The children will change, the world will change in 10 years. I see in Singapore, I was amazed with this building. Oh, this was not here 3 years ago. You see, an entire city changed so much, and we think that the children that we are measuring today will be the same in 10 years and the world will be the same. This is crazy. So this is a huge myth about talent identification. So what can I say scientifically based about this? There are a series of studies that I like very much from a German researcher called Gulich, and what he's finding is that all those athletes in many sports, in all the sports he has already studied, that maintain over time their performance at the highest level, at the international level, what they have in common are two curious things. They were not the best until junior ages. There were others better than them, and they practiced more other sports than the ones that were the best juniors. And they were really practicing other sports. They were not simply playing things. They were really doing winter sports that are different from their main sport. They were, according to my perspective, and with him we wrote some things together, that they were learning different ways of training, they were learning different ways of competing, and also they were making more informed choices about what sports they could practice after the 16 years old.
So they were exploring when they were younger.
They were exploring, but the whole pack of what sports is about, not simply playing, which is important, but it's not what all sport is about. They were also learning other forms of training and competing. And we think that this is really something that can explain why they maintain more over time. And he went further to see if this happens in other activities in life. Okay. And he found it. This is a beautiful article that he wrote with some colleagues, some American colleagues, called What Are Champions Made Of? Something like that. Okay. And he found that, for example, there is in Germany a kind of scientific prize that is the Leibniz Prize, which is the kind of the best prize for the scientists. We have in the world the Nobel Prize. Yep. So he was fortunately for Germany, they had several Nobel Prizes in the world, and they also have people who won the Leibniz Prize. And what they found is that those who won the Leibniz Prize, so the national level, not the international level of the Nobel Prize, were those who were best at the younger ages, earned their full position professorship earlier, and got their scholarships earlier. Those who earned the Nobel Prize took longer time to achieve it, were from different areas from that they earned the Nobel Prize, and only came later as full professors. So this is something powerful, that's showing that this experience in different contexts really brings something that allows you to maintain more, in a more continuous way, high level of performance.
Yeah. Is it they are able to make connections from the different fields and kind of like bring their best out of it?
Instead of learning specifically one thing, you learn what works. You find ways of making things work, and I think this is quite important. Always in activities that have goals clearly for themselves. That's why what Arne Gulich emphasizes is that they were not simply playing in the backyard, which is also fine, nothing against that, but they were really practicing other sports. So they learn about how to train to achieve and how to compete with others in different ways.
Well, that's very, very insightful. Yeah, thank you for sharing. One last thing to ask you is, our listeners will be the Singapore PE teachers, right? Would you like to say something about the subject that we have in common, which is teaching of PE, and then would you have any motivational words to say to them?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of PE teachers, so I'm a big fan of all of you. I think this is really a very important work, and independently of what are your conceptions, which I think is important that you are aware of it. Otherwise, this podcast will be meaningless, and it is not. You told me that many people follow it. So, but independently of your theoretical approach or how critically are you assessing the different possibilities, that is all fine. The more you are contagious. You contagious your students based on your passion, on the passion for doing things, the better. So I think even if you are very analytical, very based on form, whatever it is, but if you do it with passion and the students see that in you, I think you are doing a great job. To make people love moving, make people love acting in whatever the form it is, I think that will be already a very impactful in the students of these teachers.
Yeah, I think the passion that you show in your subject will rub off with the students as well, right? Thank you very much for your time today, Prof. I'm sure that our listeners, the PE teachers, will learn something insightful from the conversation and really inspired by your words about physical education. Right? Thank you for it.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, listeners, for today. Hope this podcast has been very insightful for you as been for me, and you can join us in our next podcast series. Right? Thank you very much.